Hello, my peeps. This Algebra Nation video will cover workbook page 49, problem number 5.
Ashley, let's take a look at another word problem. So we are told that Abbotsville and Broken Branch, are two cities that are actually 175 miles apart. On a map, the distance between the two towns is 2.5 inches. If there are two other cities on the same map that are shown as being 3.5 inches apart, how far apart are they in real life? So what do we have going on here? Well, we've got reality, so how far these two cities really are apart in real life, like how many miles it is, and then you have what it looks like on a map, right? And a map is just a scaled down version of reality. So what do we see? Well, we have Abbotsville and we have Broken Branch. We have Abbotsville and Broken Branch. Now, in reality, how far away are they? They're 175 miles apart. So this distance is 175 miles. Now, would it make sense to have a map that goes from Abbotsville to Broken Branch that's 175 miles long? No, that would be a very, 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 very long map. That would not make any sense. So instead, what do? Well, we have a map, we just scale everything down, and we can look at our distances just as a unit of measurement. So on a map, I'll do this in blue. On our map, we see that the distance from Abbotsville to Broken Branch is what? Is 2.5 inches. All right, so what are we told here? 175 miles is shown on a map, is represented by a distance of 2.5 inches. So there's a couple of different ways to think about this problem. I know some of you guys probably jumped in and started setting up proportions, but before we do that, let's think about what this problem is actually doing. It's saying, okay, if Abbotsville and Broken Branch are 175 miles apart, then we can connect those two on a map by doing a distance of 2.5 inches. Well, for each inch, how many miles do we have? If I draw an inch on my map, how many miles am I drawing? Well, what I have from Abbotsville to Broken Branch is I have 175 miles per, so over how many inches? I have 175 miles for 2.5 inches. Well, if I wanted to look at this for 1 inch, if I wanted to say how many miles per 1 inch, how would I get that? Well, what happens when I divide the bottom by 2.5? I get 1, right? 2.5 divided by 2.5 gives me 1. Well, whatever I do to my bottom, I'm going to do to my top. So if I do 175 divided by 2.5, I get 70. 70 miles per 1 inch. So when we draw an inch on the map, we really mean 70 miles. So if two cities are 70 miles apart, then we would draw them 1 inch apart on our map. So what we're saying here is that 2.5 inches is okay. We do 1 inch plus another inch plus a half inch. 70 plus 70 plus half of 70. We have 2.5 inches here. Well, if there's 70 miles per inch, we have 2.5 inches times 70 miles per inch. How many miles does that put us? It should be equal to 175. Let's see. 2.5 times 70, we get 175. So our reasoning is right there. Now, if we're told in our problem that we have two other cities that are 3.5 inches apart, so we have city X and city Y. If city X and city Y are 3.5 inches apart, how many miles apart are they? Well, for each inch apart on the map, that's the equivalent.
Ready for a brain break?
Another one bites the dust. Hey, I'm gonna get you too. Another one bites
Did you know that if you watch the Tampa Bay Bucks channel their inner Bears and blow a 21 lead in Seattle yesterday? That's right, you were watching history. The Seattle Seahawks have never come back to win a game being down by 21 points or more. So you just watched history yesterday. And the Seahawks moved to 8-1, the first time ever in Seattle history that the Seahawks have started out the year 8-1. History in the making.
Of 70 miles. So the first inch is 70 miles, the second inch is 70 miles, the third inch is 70 miles, and then that extra half inch is half of 70 miles. So 3.5 inches on your map is the same thing as saying 3.5 times 70 miles is equal to 245 miles. So if two cities on your map are 3.5 inches apart, we know that they're actually 245 miles apart. Now we could set up this problem differently. We could set this problem up with algebraic proportions. Now what would that look like? Well, let's think about that. We know that we have Abbotsville and Broken Branch, and we know that we have city X and city Y. So we have Abbotsville to Broken Branch is 175 miles. Well, X to Y, we don't know how many miles it is. That's what we want to figure out. Abbotsville to Broken Branch is how many inches? 2.5 inches. X to Y is how many inches? 3.5 inches. So how do we set this up? Well, we're just going to look at our algebraic proportions. We know 175 miles can be represented by 2.5 inches. Well, if that's the case, then how many miles is represented by 3.5 inches? How can we figure that out? Well, we're saying, you know what? 175 miles gives us a map distance of 2.5 inches. Well, that should be the equivalent of how many miles? Giving us 3.5 inches. So how do we do this? Well, when we're setting up our two algebraic proportions, we're going to cross multiply. We're going to cross multiply and solve for our unknown value. What you're going to see is that this math is doing exactly what we did earlier on. It's just kind of skipping the logic of it. You're just setting it up and kind of going through. So let's see what we need to do. We need to cross multiply. So we're going to say 3.5 times 175 is equal to our number of miles, which I'm going to call x. So I'm just going to call that x instead of a question mark, times 2.5 inches. So let's see what I get. 3.5 times 175, I get 612.5 equals x times 2.5. What am I trying to solve for? X, my number of miles, that's the equivalent of 3.5 inches. Well, let's divide both sides by 2.5. Since whatever I do to one side, I got to do the other. So 612.5 divided by 2.5, we get 245 is equal to x. So x is equal to 245 miles. We have two different ways that we just did this problem, and we got the same answer with both of those ways. Now, I know there's other ways to solve this question. So, if you guys have a different way to do it, even if you think that maybe one of these ways is better, let me know why you think this way is better. Post on the wall. I'm going to give you guys some karma.
Whatever you do, don't ask the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to help you solve that problem. 0-8. Not that I'm keeping track or anything. They got enough problems of their own.